Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Road Less Traveled with Gary L. Gigi's Boo unfortunately is not here, and I have some noise in the background. Please stand by. Okay, much better, much better. I forgot to turn these silly fans off. I found out just now in the chat room that Auntie, and formerly the artist formerly known as Auntie Theocon, I believe, is an amateur radio operator, just like Gary L. Wow, how neat. Unfortunately, no, I don't do CW. I've played with it and just, I don't know, just didn't click with me yet. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But we'll see as we go along here. Sorry, Gigi's Boo's not here. She's sick. I was down really hard last week. I mean, Saturday night. Last Saturday night. I just nearly passed out. I was in the floor. If it wasn't for Gigi's Boo talking to me, and I was able to focus on her voice, that I was managed to get where I needed to get to start expelling some of the necessary toxins. You know how that works. Any of you who had this flu business knows how that works. And guess who is sick tonight? Actually, since yesterday, today's the sleep day. It seemed like there was a week, it was a week on for each of us. And, I found that Sunday for me and Sunday for her too, apparently, is the day that you just sleep. And after becoming pretty dehydrated from all the wonderful explosions, After becoming dehydrated, it takes a little while and to build up the minerals and so forth again. So anyway, what can I say? It happens. And we're here, and we're happy that everyone is here. RealLibertyMedia.com. That's Grim Near's station. He's the guy in charge. And all are grateful. We're very grateful, let's put it that way, to Grim Near for putting all this on. Maintaining, for those of you who don't know, maintaining a record. And for what it's worth, that's probably what this will amount to, is a record. Because after 8 years on this end, at 8 years on this end, I'm not seeing much of a positive turn. And listen to Hal Anthony, his Behind the Woodshed program from 3 to 5, also here on RealLibertyMedia.com. And he has probably the most powerful and cogent message of anyone in the alternative media. Now, I say that very seriously. And a few people pick up on it. Most don't. But I think it's a testament to how far gone we are. And I think we are. I think strategically, we're finished. Tactically, maybe some asymmetrical resistance of various sorts will delay. But I don't think we're going to overcome this. A great example, and a reason, actually, it was kind of a last-minute addition, but a great example of this happened very nearby here this weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia, where one's dead, 19 injured, after car plows into protesters in Charlottesville. Well, we see the mainstream media spinning this up as alt-right and neo-Nazis and KKK and all this good stuff, you see. And then an Ohio registered vehicle slams into the crowd. We have a martyr now, one dead. And this happened yesterday. It said hours after police broke up violent confrontations ahead of a scheduled rally of white nationalists. Ooh, white nationalists. James Alex Fields, 20, of Maumee, Ohio, was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, 3 counts of malicious wounding, and 1 count of failing to stop after an accident that resulted in a death. And, of course, everyone now is going to open an investigation. The FBI, Department of Justice, they'll be opening an investigation to the deadly crash. The Attorney General said violence and deaths in Charlottesville strike at the heart of American law and justice. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about American law. But first of all, let's scan the rest of this CBS News article. Oh, here we go. And before we get to the law part, let's look at this. White nationalists clashed with police and counter-protesters hours before the collision in Charlottesville. Alt-right activists and white supremacists planned to protest the city's decision to remove a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee from the city's now named Emancipation Park, formerly named Lee Park. They don't mention that. But police broke up the demonstration before it began after fighting broke out. Well, let's just get to the law part now. I want to read something to you. And when this was going on in Charlottesville, the removal of the statue and all that, of course, that was playing greatly in the local media. The newspaper in this part of the world, called the Roanoke Times, had article after article. And on their online page, they have comment section, right? Well, this, what I'm about to share with you, was the comment that I made that to which no one would respond. Everyone would go silent. And I want you to hear this. Virginia Code, that's Virginia State Law, Chapter 15.2-1812, paragraph rather, it's 15.2-1812, Code of Virginia, Memorials for War Veterans. Okay, now listen closely. A locality may, within the geographical limits of the locality, authorize and permit the erection of monuments or memorials for any war or conflict, or for any engagement of such war or conflict, to include the following monuments or memorials. And it lists all the different conflicts that are applied. One of them is Confederate or Union monuments or memorials of the war between the states. Okay, here's the key phrase. If such are erected, it shall be unlawful for authorities of the locality or any other person or persons to disturb or interfere with any monuments or memorials so erected, or to prevent its citizens from taking proper measures and exercising proper means for the protection, preservation, and care of same. I'm going to read that one more time. If they are erected, it will be unlawful for the authorities of the locality or any other person or persons to disturb or interfere with monuments or memorials so erected, etc. And it goes on some other details, but that's the takeaway there, folks. And you know what? It was a dead giveaway that there was an agenda going on because nobody pointed this out. None of your bar members pointed this out, as the city fathers of Charlottesville arbitrarily went about removing statues. That was prohibited, which action was prohibited by law. Nobody said a word. And like I said, when I bring this up in the commentary, everybody shut up and walk away and not say a word. So there you go, folks. Now, what in the world is really going on here? Well. What's going on? My favorite phrase, cultural Marxism. It's how you take a society apart. And if you don't really have a handle on cultural Marxism, I invite you to look up something called the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School. That's where all this comes from. Long story short, Frankfurt School is essentially a group of people who got together and said, well, here's the good parts of capitalism, here's the good parts of Marxism, let's put it all together. Some people call that corporatism, but that's another story. Anyway, that's what's happening. I look at this, and if you had any doubt at all that this was an agenda, this should actually remove all those doubts. How simple for anyone of a legal status, I guess you'd say, to go before the Charlottesville city council, and point out the fact that there is a law that prohibits them from doing something. No one did it, did they? How interesting is that, folks? But how telling is it, too? Whew, boy. The world in which we live, and we think it's going to get better. No, I don't think it is. But on a lighter note, on this local newspaper I mentioned, the Roanoke Times, kind of a funny story came up since I've been gone a couple of weeks. This actually was from later on in July, where 15 pounds of frozen Italian sausage crashed down on a family's roof. Or roof, some people say around here. And the family's wondering how the mystery meat ended up there. And this happened in Deerfield Beach, Florida. A South Florida family is perplexed after recently waking up to a loud thud, only to find that the mysterious sound was several packages of frozen Italian sausage. As far as I know, we still haven't figured this one out. They took pictures and sent it in to the company that produced it, and they got nothing but crickets. They thought for a minute it fell out of an airplane. But, here we go. Is this an Amazon drone that malfunctioned? I don't know. Oh, you just got to laugh, don't you? You don't have much option. But I'm going to tell you, wow. Yeah, we were gone actually the week before last, just to drop back a little bit. I received a late birthday present, as it were, and tickets to the Chicago and Doobie Brothers concert in Virginia Beach. Wow. You talk about a blast from the past. Unbelievable. It was just an amazing time. And it's kind of nostalgic, actually. I was surprised at the flow of emotions that I experienced hearing the songs and coming to the realization As James Pankow pointed out during some of his talk mid-concert, that they had been doing this for 50 years, half a century. These guys are in their 70s. Well, not all of them. There are only three or four, I can't remember which, originals left. And they're in their 70s. But they're still kicking. We're still boogieing on stage. I'm saying this is amazing. And, of course, folks my age sitting in the crowd. And it was funny to watch because, during one of those very nostalgic songs where people back in the day would hold their lighters up, light their lighters and hold it up. Well, the whole place was doing that, except they were doing it with their cell phones. But there was an exception. There was one guy down not too far in front of where I was. And, long hair, headband, mustache, goatee, think Tommy Chong. And he had his lighter. He had his big lighter. So he was the real deal, not the virtual deal. But anyway, that was a fun experience, and they're well worth seeing if you're into that genre. Okay. All right. Okay. Which one of you guys are going to take this job? I have some people in mind, actually, in the chat room for this job. And I think Vinny would be the right one, because NASA has an opening for someone to defend the Earth from aliens, and it pays a 6-figure salary. Vinny, come on, step up. They're hiring a planetary protection officer with a salary of up to $187,000. The job was created after the signing of the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. It took all this time to get it funded, I guess. Planetary protection officers are tasked with making sure humans don't contaminate planets, moons, and other objects in space. They're also supposed to help prevent any alien microbes from spreading to Earth. Vinny, come on, man. This is all you. While many space agencies hire planetary protection officers, they're often shared or part-time roles. In fact, only 2 such full-time roles exist in the world, one at NASA and the other at the European Space Agency. This new job ad is a result of relocating the position I currently hold, and this is Catherine Connolly of NASA speaking, that I currently hold to the Office of Safety and Mission Assurance, which is an independent technical authority within NASA. She did not indicate whether she planned to reapply for the position, which is held for at least 3 years, but may be extended to 5. See, Vinny, you got it, man. It's all you. And I'll drop this link in for you so you can check it out and make the necessary applications. But I can't think of anyone better qualified for this job. Okay, moving right along here. And for something that most of us will actually kind of laugh about, because it's not really news, and it's not really surprising. But yeah, I guess you could say it's surprising in a sense that it was allowed to happen, but not surprising in the reality of it. A French court found Monsanto guilty of chemical poisoning. And it's an appeal court has upheld a 2012 ruling against Monsanto in which they were found guilty of the chemical poisoning of a farmer named Paul Francois. Francois said that in 2004 he became ill because of Monsanto's weed killer, Lasso. He claims he suffered from neurological problems, memory loss, headaches, and stammering after inadvertently inhaling the herbicide. His doctors determined the cause of his health was monochlorobenzene, a highly toxic substance that made up 50% of Monsanto's herbicide. He filed suit in 2012 because Monsanto did not provide any sort of warning over that. Okay. And the appeals court says, you're guilty. Now, all that's well and good. Collecting might be a whole nother matter, I would suspect. Okay, here's another thing. Who wants to set up a fictitious agency? You want to start up a partnership here? I mean, there's some guys in the chat room that do that. Anybody step up, maybe Sock and I can do this. And if we set up a fictitious agency, we can apply to the Defense Department and receive all kinds of goodies because, as related in a July 19th story, the Department of Defense gave equipment to fictitious agency that included M16 and night vision goggles. Sources, this is actually originally from CNN. It could be fake. We'll go with it. Sources have told CNN that an extensive investigation by a government watchdog group has found alarming weaknesses in a program within the Department of Defense that turns over excess military equipment like modified M16 rifles and night vision goggles to local law enforcement. The Government Accountability Office report concluded that DoD does not have proper controls in place. In fact, they set up their own fictitious federal law enforcement agency and created a fictitious agency website. Then they applied and were granted access to the DoD's program in early 2017 after completing an application to join in late 2016. And they were able to obtain over 100 controlled items with an estimated value of $1.2 million, including night vision goggles, simulated rifles, and simulated pipe bombs. How cool is that? Makes you wonder who else did this that you don't know about. They talk about losing 3 or 4, how many trillions of dollars. Who's, when do you stop counting, right? Yeah, we can distribute the goodies to anyone we like. Unbelievable. But you know what? You know what I've discovered over time? There are reasons why there are oversights or loopholes like that. And it's to make it easier to assist in your own undoing, so to speak. Maybe a little bit from the good news front. Actually, this is a town I used to live in. I spent 8 years in this. Well, be nice. In this town in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania town votes unanimously to remove fluoride. And it was funny because this article actually came out 3 weeks ago. And it was right on the heels of some of the stories that we were talking about fluoride. And if you remember, we were giving you information that you could take to your counsel and say, answer these questions. Well, apparently, someone did it. Johnstown, Pennsylvania just shot down the use of fluoride in their water supply. And it will remove fluoride from the water of roughly 40,000 residents. The Water Authority itself now is saying that fluoride is corrosive, dangerous, and expensive. The Water Authority manager, Michael Kerr, said that they were looking at saving over $400,000 over the next 10 years. But of course, there's always one. We have a dentist, Okay, he's a dentist, and he's upset. Oh, no fluoride in the water. All the kids' teeth will fall out now. Boy, talk about somebody who's drunk the fluoride. And it even goes on to show I actually have a YouTube link, for the 2015 documentary Fluoride Poison on Tap. So if you don't think for a minute that sometimes you never know who might just get the message. What do you know about that? Now, let's have some fun with electronic energy meters. You remember those, right? Smart meters that people were warned about. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Well, Amsterdam University of Applied Science, now we're talking about in the Netherlands, published article in the scientific journal IEEE, Electromagnetic Compatibility Magazine, and which came to the conclusion, the study did, that some electronic meters can give false readings that are up to 582% higher than actual energy consumption. Oh, no. Talk about technology. Now let's just ask the pregnant question. 21st century technology, and this is an accident? Right. The greatest inaccuracies were seen when dimmers combined with energy-saving light bulbs and LED bulbs were connected to the system. And here's their explanation. The inaccurate readings are attributed to the energy meter's design, together with the increasing use of modern, often energy-efficient switching devices. Here, the electricity being consumed no longer has a perfect waveform. Instead, it acquires an erratic pattern. The designers of modern energy meters have not made sufficient allowance for the switching devices of this kind. Oh, boy, that sounds a little thin to me. I'll let you make up your own mind on that one. But along with bathing you in all kinds of EM and creating fire hazards, they also rip you off. That sounds about right, though, right? You're being harvested. I mean, you're being poisoned, and we talked about the fluoride earlier. You're being poisoned, and then someone's going to make money off that. And then they're going to make money off trying to make you better or managing the illness. Oh, yeah, buddy. It's just unbelievable. And you remember 3 weeks ago we talked about the artificial intelligence. I believe it was, who was it? Well, I don't remember. Who was it? Facebook, maybe. I think it was Facebook that created the artificial intelligence to create its own language. It was talking amongst themselves. The people didn't know what they were talking about. Well, they got a little bit freaky, apparently, so the researchers shut down the AI that invented its own language. Yeah, it was Facebook. An artificial intelligence system being developed at Facebook created its own language. It developed a system of code words to make communication more efficient. Researchers shut the system down when they realized the AI was no longer using English. Whoa, golly Moses. Ooh, and this article goes on to talk about the details of all that and the whys and why AI would, their interpretation of why AI would do such a thing. I'm going to have to tell you, I just finished watching the remake serial show Battlestar Galactica. I don't know how many folks have watched that with Edward James Olmos. That is a spooky ass. They really did a good job on that. And I have to tell you, I was they create a whole lot of food for thought. Something you really need to think about. I thought they did an excellent job with that remake. And it's on Hulu if you want to check it out. Now we're going to get spooky. And in one of those things, another one of those stories about things that we're now finding out about, this that has probably been around for a while. Charlottesville Accelerating Intelligence website, in a July 14 article, talks about being able to project a visual image directly into the brain, bypassing the eyes. It's back to the Battlestar Galactica theme again. Yeah, and of course they say allowing the blind to see or the paralyzed to feel touch. Okay, that sounds good, right? Imagine replacing a damaged eye with a window directly into the brain, one that communicates with the visual part of the cerebral cortex by reading from 1 million individual neurons and simultaneously stimulating 1,000 of them with single-cell accuracy. And guess who's behind this show? That's the goal of $21.6 million DARPA award to the University of California, Berkeley, one of 6 organizations funded by DARPA's Neural Engineering System Design Program that is to develop implantable, biocompatible neural interfaces that can compensate for visual or hearing defects. Sidelines, right? And the rest of the article goes into the details of all of that. Well, in what interesting times we presently live. And Sock Puppet points out, doesn't take a genius to figure out what bots will do left to their own devices. IRC bots at war with each other come up with some unique content. Well, there you go. And there's the future of artificial intelligence, right? Now we want to, it's kind of beating the drum a little bit, but now we want to tie that in with quantum computing. What could go wrong, right? Battlestar Galactica again looms largely in my mind. Okay, now you thought that was bad. Now the government, according to this article, now the government is on the verge of reading minds. I'm not sure they couldn't already for quite a while, but in any case, antimedia.org issued the article, U.S. government on verge of reading minds, based on researchers at Carnegie Mellon University saying that they made a scientific breakthrough using machine algorithms to accurately guess what people are thinking. In other words, as the university referred, they have harnessed mind-reading technology to decode complex thoughts. It says, though this technology does not identify the actual words, lead researcher Marcel Just, D.O. Hebb, University Professor of Psychology in the Dietrich College of Humanities and Social Sciences, has made enough progress that machine learning algorithms with brain imaging technology can effectively read minds. The new study demonstrates that the brain's coding of 240 complex events, sentences like the shouting during the trial scenario, uses an alphabet of 42 meaning components or neurally plausible semantic features consisting of features like person, setting, size, social interaction, and physical action. That sounds a little out there, so let's search. Antimedia reached out to IARPA for comment on how they intend to apply the developing mind-reading technology and will update this article if they respond. Though Coates is obviously not in charge of funding, Just's research directly, his position on civil liberties and privacy inevitably color the attitude of the agency he controls. Should the American people trust this agency and its research wing with technology crafted to read their minds? And it's referring to essentially DARPA, but DARPA through several cutouts. But yeah, what do you think about that? We can put images in your head, and then we can read your mind. Yeah. Well, I saw them both too, Grim there, and yeah, the almost version is incredibly better. It's just wonderful, Yeah, it's unbelievable. Stuff's going on, and it's happening quickly. And Hal pointed that out in his show today, 3 to 5. I really enjoyed that. He's always on point, but he was very, very on point today. Here we are, like it or not, and this continues to escalate. This whole process continues to escalate on an international level, and of course, we obviously notice it locally. Just like this. Now, I don't know that many people really are on this bubble. U.S. fertility rate hits a record low. Think about that. The U.S. fertility rate has dropped to the lowest number reported since fertility records started being kept more than a century ago. There were 61.5 births per thousand women aged 15 to 44 in the year ending the first quarter of 2017. It demonstrates a further decline from the previous year. At the same point in 2016, it was 62.5 per thousand. That's something to think about. According to the new report, there were 11.4 births per thousand women ages 40 to 44, compared to 101.9 per thousand in women aged 30 to 34. They're trying to write it off as a sociological trend. I don't think so, personally. And let's go ahead and jump way down the tab list here, because we're going to get into something perhaps a little more disturbing. What time we got? Yeah, this will work. How many of you are familiar with the deep web? You hear about the dark web. The deep web is something else. The deep web is just the unindexed stuff out there, which I have heard amounts to about 70% of the internet. Okay. The deep web, also known as the invisible web or the hidden web, are parts of the World Wide Web whose contents are not indexed by standard search engines for any reason. The deep web includes many very common uses such as webmail and online banking, but also paid services that users must pay for and which is protected by a paywall such as video on demand. Computer scientist Michael Bergman is credited with coining the term blah, blah, blah. I would go on to say there's probably a few other reasons why there are hidden areas in the internet. Don't forget what the source of the internet was. DARPA. Hello, operator. Let's talk a little bit about some creepy true stories about the deep web. And hang with me, because this is actually taking us back to the starting point. Let's pick a couple out. This was way back before Google web pages were used. For the most part, still very basic HTML with JavaScript. Hardly anyone uses CSS. Only discussion boards and some banking sites had anything approaching mature front-end, back-end combinations. Early net, real deep web story, not just one about illicit activities online. This is coming from a Reddit user called Fakington. He says, I was browsing random blogs, GeoCity sites, and the like, just going from link to link, eventually came upon an odd page. It appeared to be random thoughts from different people, but for the time, it was very well designed. The messages seemed to be cryptic in nature, like several people trying to pass secret notes. I started through the source, and hidden in the comments of a JavaScript were various IP addresses. I gathered all the IPs in a text file and began enumerating. Some were routers with banner messages I could telnet to, almost all at universities. The default Cisco credentials from back in the day worked on most of them, but I didn't poke around. A few of the IPs were web servers with little to nothing on them, mostly Apache on Linux or some BSD or at least one IIS server I can recall. I finally came upon a web server with a huge directory of HTML files and TIFF images, with a few smaller subdirectories containing the same NSLOOKUP returned no reverse records for the IP. A visual route traced as far as Colorado. The HTML files, back up, Colorado. What's going on in Colorado, huh? Think about that. The HTML files appeared to be records a psychologist or similar mental health professional would keep. The images were faxes, apparently of both military and medical nature. As I browsed from a subdirectory back to the parent, at the top was a new HTML file named something like hellothere.html. The timestamp was from right that minute. I opened it, and in plain text was the message, "We see you." About 15 seconds later, the server dropped. That's just one story, just to let you know that there's a whole lot more going on out there than you probably want to know, actually. But this brings me back to where we were. How many of you have ever heard of a site called Deagle.com? DEAGEL.com. Well, it's kind of funny. It's not that deeply obscured. However, you can all try this at home. You can try it right now. Bring up your search engine, whatever you use. Type in the word like, for example, YouTube. That's it. Now, when you search on that, obviously, the very first thing that comes back is youtube.com in the search results, right? You can do the same thing with Real Liberty Media. Separate words, and bang, Real Liberty Media will come back. Now type DEAGEL. Deagle.com will not come back. So what's there? What are they all about? According to their own website, Deagle.com provides news on international military aviation and advanced technologies. Their website has articles dating back to 2003, but not much is known about the real owners. And I'll stop right there and I'll tell you I did my own research. And it's kind of fascinating as to the locations of the listed owners. Very close to a well-known military base, put it that way. Despite repeated attempts to debunk the website, it is cited as reference in Stratfor. Most of you guys know what Stratfor is. Public intelligence operation that's probably related to the Mossad in Austin, Texas. Interesting, co-located with Alex Jones, but I digress. It's cited as a reference in a Stratfor report on the technological capabilities of the People's Republic of North Korea. Thus, Deagle provides information subsequently used by global intelligence communities and governments. Now, a partial list of known Deagle partners: NSA, NATO, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OSCE, Russian Defense Procurement Agency, Stratfor, the World Bank, and the United Nations. Okay, so where am I going with all this? Well, let's go to one. Now, this had to be captured via archive.is, and it's from Deagle.com, and it lists 180 countries with their projected populations of 2025. And I'm not, obviously, I'm going to sit here and read through all this to you, but it is very important that you pay particular attention as you read this as to the striking decline of populations through most of the world as projected. I actually have it two ways. I dug it out from their website. That is a more previous copy, and I have another one from the 2016 over the 2017 version. Slight differences, but nothing that really changes the overall theme. But you will notice, let's look at the United States, just for the heck of it. Population. Presently, they list at 323,990,000. Projected in 2025 to be 54,326,300. Gross domestic product presently listed at 18. That's probably in thousands, but 18,560,000, 18 probably billions, I'm not sure, but anyway, it's reduced down to 921,157. You can see these for yourself. Germany, from 80 million to 31 million. Now, you think this is a hoax, better think again, because it's not. And if there isn't prima facie evidence of the intent to kill you, I don't know what this is. Let's just go ahead and drop this in for you. You can have fun. Here's the one from archive.org. And here's the one directly mined out of their site. It's very disturbing, guys. I mean, come on, wake up. It's very disturbing. What's equally disturbing is the places that actually change very little in population and actually increase in gross domestic product. Places that include China, Russia, Brazil, Indonesia. These places increase, but on the other hand, look at the United States and the Germanys and France. Be forewarned is forearmed, fellas. And just on top of that, let's just drop Deagle's little shot of the United States in 2016. Tells you all about it. And then their forecast for 2025. This is really wild. I mean, guys, pull this up. Presently, population 324 million. Surface population 9.6 million per square kilometer, or density actually 34 inhabitants per square kilometer. Let's drop down to 2025 forecast. 54 million with 6 inhabitants per square kilometer. If this doesn't slap you in the face, I don't know what it's going to take. Yeah, I know I said it's pretty much over, and I think this is evidence of it. Enjoy it while you can, guys. Okay, well, where do you go where do you go from there, right? Where do you go from there? There are other articles here. Let's see. Let's look at this. Let's look at things tactically. Yeah, as best as we can. Now, what about the kids? Okay, we always hear about that. What about who'll build the roads? What about the children, right? Well, here are 10 eating rules that foreign kids know better than Americans. And I think these actually all come together at some point. Sure, America might be known as the land of the free, but we're also known as the land of the fatty fast foods and obesity. But fear not. Despite the staggering obesity rates our country has, above 20% in all states as of September 2016, there is still hope. Check out some of the eating tricks followed by countries around the world and get on the healthy track. In France, sugary breakfasts are no. Forget Count Chocula and tricks and all that good stuff. Stop eating that crap for breakfast. Stop feeding it to the kids. While a pint of Ben & Jerry's may ease the sting of a breakup, the extra weight it leads to might just make things more difficult. In France, breakfast typically consists of fruit and maybe a croissant. And be sure to incorporate some kind of healthy food with the most important meal of the day, be it a banana on top of your non-sugared cereal or an apple and peanut butter on the side. Might take a little longer than getting out a Pop-Tart, but you'll live longer as the result. In Italy, as most carb lovers know, pasta and associated foods, despite how delicious they are, aren't exactly the best things to gorge on. It's a shame, we know, but rarely does something that tastes that good end up being entirely good for you. While it's nice to eat occasionally, you probably want to stay away from the pasta stuff. A study from 2009 concluded in a large, healthy Italian population, non-predefined dietary patterns, including foods considered to be rather unhealthy, were associated with higher levels of cardiovascular risk factors, as well as others. So while this means you should be careful about how much real pasta you eat, they suggest trying spaghetti squash as a substitute. Actually, I've tried that. It's very, very good. If you haven't tried spaghetti squash, you probably should. I don't know. That's what Hollywood says, Grimnir, but apparently not according to this article. And in Japan, how about sushi? Sushi is perfect for the chic date nights and a quick, healthy meal on the go. But have you ever wondered why your portions look so small? Well, for one, the sushi we know and love today was developed in the early 19th century and was sold from stalls as a snack food, and those stalls were the precursors of today's sushi restaurants. Though we all like to get Texas-sized portions, especially since sushi is among the most expensive meal choices, there's a benefit to relying on these smaller sizes. Not to mention the fact that if you're eating Pacific fish, you're liable to glow in the dark if you eat too much of it. But it's been suggested that a smaller portion will actually make a person crave less food to be satisfied. The Japanese capitalize on their compact portions by focusing on the visual aesthetic. That's why it takes, if you ever looked into culinary arts, look into being a sushi chef and see how long that takes. It ain't no joke. Now, we've always joked about Ethiopians, right? Well, at least back in my day, starving Ethiopians. It's not funny because they did have a bad time there for a period. But while Italy might be known for its family-style meals, you probably shouldn't try it in Ethiopia. Typical diet includes shared dishes scooped up with injera. Now, there's a Ethiopian restaurant, the Red Sea, it's called, in Washington D.C. that is unbelievably good, and the injera is like a really, really flat, thin bread. It's so thin, they actually can roll it up like a napkin. And that's what you use to eat. Don't use utensils, you use your fingers. And there's a little trick to that too. So kind of fun. If you like beans and all that, you'll take a lesson from Ethiopia. The cuisine emphasizes root vegetables, beans, and lentils. Vegans and vegetarians would be welcome too, since the diet is light on dairy and animal products. Not to say they don't have nice, spicy, hot beef entrees. They do. So, just to set the record straight on that. And Mexico comes up as a place that has a generally good diet, it says, because they focus a lot on beans, legumes. Sweden, healthy bread. Take note of the Swedish diet, in which bread is a prime component. Not all bread. Put down the, I don't know how to say that, ciabatta, I guess it is. But rye bread for sure. Hail for the amount of fiber it contains. Rye bread is a great fix for those of us who will never be convinced that whole wheat bread is anything more than edible. And we use that term loosely. Actually, I like whole wheat and rye. And it goes on to talk about Chinese food, Greek food, all that. So, if you're interested in what you eat, or maybe interested in what you shouldn't eat, maybe this is an article you could find interesting. Well, our time's about up. Wow. What do you know about all that? It's very strange not to have Gigi's Boo here, right? And, I'm sorry about that. She's listening, but not really feeling up to saying much. So I hope she's better soon, because this going it alone is just, what's that Three Dog Night song? One is the loneliest number. Yeah, well, it is here on the Road Less Traveled. So appreciate you guys showing up tonight and listening as you did. I regret that the circumstances under which we find ourselves isn't better, but at least in the immediate, we can improve our present condition until maybe someday something will fall out of this. I don't know. We'll find out what it is. But join us next week on the Road Less Traveled. Maybe we'll have a little better view of it all. So anyway, until then, take care and be well, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.